of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Howdy ho, everybody. Coming to you cordless from glamorous Minneapolis. It's Monday night, May 11th, 2026. I am Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 349, if you're keeping score at home. And yeah, tomorrow is our 350th show. Who the hell would have known it? We'll talk about that later in Footnotes. Our guest tonight is RAINER ZITELMANN. He's written like 32 books. And in 30 that have been translated into 35 different languages. His latest book is called, I gotta read it, New Space Capitalism, The Entrepreneurial Path to the Stars. And he joins us now from his office in Berlin, of all places. The internet actually works, Rainier. How about that?
Hi, yes, great. Thank you.
Hi. So this book you have, this new book you have out, I specifically asked for your publicist, to join us because I'm really fascinated by this topic. What prompted you to write it in the first place?
I wrote some books why capitalism is better than socialism, but there's one industry where a couple of years ago, everyone thought this has to be done by the government. And this is, when I was young, first moon landing and all these things, we couldn't imagine that there are private companies who can do it. And today it's private, it's capitalist with this Elon Musk. I give you only one number. It was a surprise for me. In the last year, we had worldwide 324 rocket launches. 165 out of them were from SpaceX. So if SpaceX would be a country, it's not a country, it's a private company, it would be number one, far ahead of China, that comes then second with 88. Or from in orbit, we have 15,000 satellites, 10,000 are Starlink satellites. So it's private capitalism. And Elon Musk was able to reduce the launch costs. It means how much does it cost to bring 1 kilogram in orbit by 95%. This is what capitalism can do compared with state-led space flight.
Isn't this just proof that government can't do anything efficiently? I mean, that's what I draw from this, isn't that?
Absolutely. So of course, sometimes if they take a lot of money and effort, like the Apollo program, in today's dollars, it was 300 billion. 400,000 people working for it, 20,000 companies. Of course, sometimes they are successful, but this is the story in my book. Then 50 years, it was a total failure with this crazy space shuttle program. For example, the government calculated, or NASA, with 5 to 10 million costs per flight. In the end, it was $1.5 billion per flight. So yeah. Only find one, and then we had these two accidents where 14 people died, and then they stopped the program. And in 2011, the United States were not longer able to bring their own astronauts from American soil with an American rocket to the International Space Station. They had to ask the Russians to do it in this old-fashioned Soyuz rockets. And, the headline of this chapter in my book is The End of History, the End of Future. This was really the end of future. But then came Elon Musk with his private company, and 9 years later, and now he brings the astronauts to the International Space Station so much cheaper. And for me, this is another example why capitalism is better than government solutions.
Yeah, first of all, I've read half of your book. It's a really great read. I have to my congrats to you. I'm having a lot of fun reading it. I'm going to finish it. But the one thing that, especially in the beginning, I started at the beginning. The one thing I kind of gathered is that although your defense of capitalism is kind of implied and obvious, I do wonder if at the beginning, if only government could have done this because of the cost. I mean, there's this strange, we have in the West this strange government private enterprise kind of partnership that happens, and believe me, I'm totally a capitalist. I'm with you on this. But the thing is, I wonder at the beginning if a private company could have done it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't know whether a private company were able. At this time, there were no rich people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. Sometimes it depends on people. But I tell you something, and I think you read it in the book. What I learned, what is very interesting. At this time, the NASA, they didn't build their rockets by themselves. They did it also with private companies like Boeing or Rockwell. But they had a crazy system. They called it cost plus contracts. And this means they had to prove how much cost did we have, and then they could add maybe 8% profit. The result was that the costs became higher and higher, because if you were a company and you see, okay, I have 1 billion costs, and then I make maybe 100 million profit, but if I have 3 billion costs, I have 3 million profit. Then the costs rose and rose. And this was a strange system, what they called the cost plus system. And Elon Musk has a totally different cooperation with NASA. It's like maybe FedEx or UPS. I bring you a satellite in space, or bring your astronaut to the International Space Station, and I charge you for this like a service. I'm a service provider. And if I save costs, it's my profit. And this was one of the reasons why the costs are decreased so much. But what I make another important point is for the future of space. My book is also what will happen in the future. Elon Musk had these plans even to colonize Mars with 1 million people there, or building a city on the moon. And I think it will be not possible with taxpayers' money. This is absolutely impossible. So you have to find a way to finance it private. And I have an idea in my book how to do it. Today, it's not possible either for nations, not for private companies, to earn celestial bodies or land on celestial bodies. And I think this is a big mistake, because socialism didn't work on Earth, nowhere. And why did it work on Mars or on Moon when it didn't work nowhere on Earth? It works not in North Korea, nowhere. And so I think we should allow private property, that someone can own private property, land on the Moon or on Mars, for example. This was a success story of the United States in the beginning. Go west with this homesteading. Everyone could take a piece of land. And I think this is the only possibility to finance all these activities. I give you an example that it's not so abstract. Maybe let's assume Elon Musk will be the first to go to Mars. Of course, he shouldn't own the whole Mars, but maybe an area as big as Singapore. This has 200,000 times you can put it in Mars. And then bring it to the stock exchange. Bring Mars to the stock exchange, like a real estate investment trust. And then everyone can be an owner. You, me, and everyone.
That's
the richest country by far in Latin America. Now it's the poorest country.
That's right. I know.
And what is bad, because Deng Xiaoping, he did great reforms in China with more market, more capitalism. And Xi Jinping, he's more like a government guy who goes back less market. But for the space industry, he saw, no, this will not work with our government-led industry. Just fascinated in China for companies like Blue Origin. This is Jeff Bezos' company, or to copy it. And now today you have 450 private space companies in China. It's more in China today as it is in the United States, but they learned from this.
Yeah, but they have a culture problem too, and that is because society's set up. People don't have much imagination, so they don't. I don't have to tell you, the reason Elon Musk and these people is because they have a completely unfettered mind. I mean, if Musk decides he wants to go to Mars, he's going to Mars. He'll figure it out.
Yes, you're right. This is the problem with China. If someone would become so big and famous as Musk in China, this wouldn't be possible because Xi Jinping would be very jealous about him. Oh, no, it can't be. Here's only the big leader and hero, and there's no one, no God beside me. This was what happened. Do you remember Jack Ma, the Alibaba founder? Some years ago, yes, they put him down because he became too famous. He became too much power. And this is, you are absolutely correct. I have it in my book. This is the problem in China, that you can hardly imagine people like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, maybe people who are so very rich. We have a lot of billionaires. Today you have in China as many billionaires as nowhere in the world. Only in the United States we have some more. But they have to, they cannot do things independently. You know, they have to conform with the government, and this is the problem. But I mentioned it only to show that even they understood that with space, it's not possible to do it only by the government. Even Xi Jinping understood it. But we Europeans, we didn't understand it. In Europe, it's all from Europe. And we had last year 8 rocket launches in whole Europe. 8. I remember I told you SpaceX has 165, 20 times more for a private company in the United States than whole Europe with our government-led space flight.
Right. So the thing I don't understand is, getting back to Xi Jinping, if he thinks that about space, how come, like you said, his predecessor, Dao Xiaoping, I can't remember his last name or first name, for a while, I knew people lived in China in the first part of the 21st century, and they said that it was fascinating because they were basic, like you said, they were running private enterprise under a one-party rule. And my friends said the people in China were very liberated because unless you actually contradicted the government, you could pretty much do whatever you wanted. That was the way it worked for about 20 years.
Absolutely. I agree. I give you only 2 numbers. I wrote a lot about China. You can read it in my book. I have the book, The Power of Capitalism, and there's the first chapters about China. In the end of the 50s, there was the biggest socialist experiment in history. They called it the Great Leap Forward from Mao Zedong. 45 million people died. 45 million people died. And even after Mao's death, in 1981, 88% of people in China lived in extreme poverty. But then came Deng Xiaoping, started with free market. That the number of people living in poverty in China decreased from 88 to 1%. So yes, and it's amazing what happened there. And this is, I have a good friend in the Beijing University. He believes in free market and capitalism like I do. And he told me always, our success in China was not because of the state, but in spite of the state.
Right.
He said, people in the West, they don't understand it. They said, oh, it's all the planned economy and maybe they have a secret. No, they came from 100% government and then they reduced government more and more. And this was the reason. But yes, the bad thing is that Xi Jinping now since maybe 10, 15 years goes back to more government and less market. This is also the reason why they have now a couple of problems in China.
Yeah, it's stupid. That's all there is to it.
But this is what sometimes happens. It happens also if they became successful, and then they go back. It's like maybe the same thing is, imagine you have a great body and then you gain fat because you eat all day pizza and chocolates, yes. And then you start diet, yes. Stop eating pizza, stop eating chocolate, eating all this stuff. And then you're in great shape. And 2 years later, you think, oh, why shouldn't I eat a piece of pizza or chocolate? Or I don't have any problem with my weight of body. And then when you eat it, what happens? Nothing. It's not like next morning you wake up and you're fat again. Oh, nothing happens. Let's take another chocolate and maybe so more and more. But what will be the end? And this is why he forget why he became successful. He forget it, why he became slim. Yes, and this is the same with nations. I saw in a lot of countries. I traveled 2021 and 23 in 30 countries all over the world. And to speak about capitalism, and I saw it in a lot of countries, they forgot why they became successful. And then they go back to government. You see it now with this young people in the United States. Oh, I'm pro-socialism and so on. And in New York, they voted for this Marxist mayor.
Well, the problem here, though, is that you have young people that they've never even seen anything else. All they know is that, they grow and they just think this just happened, So this is the problem about having young people run anything, actually. But that's the problem. The mayor of New York was voted in by a bunch of young females, basically, And
the problem is they don't hear about this at school or university.
No, they don't.
They don't teach. They don't teach them. I give you one example. You remember 5 minutes ago I spoke about this great leap forward in China where 45 million people died.
Yeah, right.
I had lectures in 30 countries. Sometimes only 50 people, sometimes 500, sometimes 5,000. In every lecture I asked, who of you heard at school or university about this biggest socialist experiment where 45 million people died? Wherever I spoke, whether it was in Washington, D.C. or New York, or whether I spoke in Korea or I spoke in Argentina or in Europe, only very few people raised their hands. They haven't heard about it. They didn't know. That's why I write my books, because they don't learn it at school.
Are we just doomed to failure as a civilization? I mean, we seem to over again for this very reason. And it's exactly like you said. The example I use is people on depression medication. And I've known people who do. Then they think, I don't need the medication, I feel fine. And then they stop and they get depressed again. And it's just like the thing about you're talking about getting fat. It's just a stupidity.
Absolutely. It's another good example I will keep in mind. It's the same. And another trick from socialists, reality with their utopia. When I asked them, where socialism realized? Tell me one country. Oh, no. Okay, it's the same. If I would compare your real life marriage with a romantic love novel, for example. Your wife said, oh, we have to talk. Maybe we have to be divorced because I read this romantic love novel and not as it is written there. You would say, hey, you're stupid. Please don't compare our marriage with this book. Compare with our friends.
That's a great
example.
So, hold on just a second. I have to go through what I got here. So Musk has 3 reasons for going to Mars. Do you want me to name them or do you remember? Or?
Yes. I think one very important reason is that he says, millions of years ago, there were an asteroid on the Earth where, you know the story, all these dinosaurs were killed. And this will happen again. And we don't know whether it will be possible that, someone like Bruce Willis will go there, like in the movies, and destroy it. Yeah. So, and this can happen again. We don't know when. Maybe in 1,000,000 years, maybe 100,000 years, maybe in 500 years. We don't know. But we know it will happen. And he said, if then all mankind is dead, maybe in the worst case, this would be really a sad thing. So we have to have another second planet. And it's in our, solar system, it's only possible with Mars. Difficult, very difficult. It will take, I think, some hundreds of years to settle it, but we have to start as early as it, like, with the moon landing. It's an example. We did it in 1969, and what did we now half a year ago? We passed the moon, and the NASA was very proud. Oh, we were 6,000 kilometers far more than they were, but no, you never landed there. Yeah. And you did it 55 years ago. So progress doesn't happen automatically. You can always go back, as we had in the discussion before. And so he says, we have to do something for it. And I think the third thing is he's someone, and this is someone I like because I think this is a part of American spirit. Set yourself really big goals. And this is something that I like. I think America is based, as I see it, yes, on entrepreneurship, capitalism, but also on people with vision, with people who set themselves big goals. I'm a fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I know not everyone likes him, maybe with his political topics, but I like him. I admire him. He came from Austria, from a poor family. Maybe
Right.
you have seen this in Netflix. There's a great movie about it. And then he had this vision to become the biggest bodybuilder in the world. And he came there to the United States, spoke no word English, and he had this strange accent, even more than my accent now. And they told and said, I will become now one of the best paid movie stars in America. They forget it. You have a strange name, Arnold Schwarzenegger. No one can pronounce it, and no one want to see muscles like yours. They want to see someone like Dustin Hoffman. This was in the 50s with Hercules. And then your accent, no one can understand you. But in the end, with Terminator and so, he became one of the best paid movie stars. And in the end, even he became 2 times elected governor of California. And I think this is what I like, people with a dream big. So
Yeah.
and this is what you call dream big. And Elon Musk is for me someone with big, this is the biggest dream. I read it in the biography about him after he sold his first company, PayPal. He was sitting there with friends in the sea, and someone asked, well, now what will you do next time? And he was then at the end of his 20s. And he said, I think my task is to colonize Mars and to make mankind to multiplanetary spaces. And he said, what do you tell me? You are crazy. And then I have the story in my book. Maybe you had it. And then he Googled what are the plans for NASA with Mars? So there were no plans.
Yeah.
And then he found the Mars Society, founded by Robert Suprin. By the way, I met him, Robert Suprin. He told me a lot of interesting things. And then he met Robert Suprin. He's the founder of the Mars Society, and he wrote great books about how to colonize Mars. And he asked him, how can I go there? I said, I want to buy a rocket. I want to buy a rocket. Where can I buy it? Let's go to Russia. They sell rockets. How to come there? Who has the connection? And he told him the name of Robert Cantrell. And then Musk called him. And he was driving in his car and there was something when at the phone, he never heard his name before. Here's Elon Musk. I'm a millionaire. I sold PayPal, and I want to make mankind to multiplanetary spaces and settle Mars. I want to buy a rocket in Russia. And he thought, oh, what is this crazy guy calling me there? But then in the end, he found out, no, this was real. And then they traveled both to Russia and asked them to sell them rockets. But
the amazing thing, Rainer, this is the part I find really amazing. Musk did some quick calculations and realized it'd be easier, cheaper for him to build the rockets than to buy them from Russia.
Exactly. This was, I say you read it. Yes, first he was there, but then they spot on his shoes because he said the same story. I will go to Mars. Oh, he's crazy. He will go to Mars. Forget about him. And then exactly as you said it, he was in his in plane, and then no, we can do it by ourselves. And of course, first everyone laughed at him, but again, I come back to this. The number that I told today, his company, SpaceX, had more rocket launches last year than all countries in the world together.
Yeah.
I love these stories. Dream dream big, even bigger. And this is also, I think, one of the secrets of America. Think big.
Well, and you also talked the first reason you gave about the fact that like progress isn't steady. I think also gets back to what I was talking about, the fact that I'm starting to think that, and I grew up with this idea. I think I was wrong, that patience is a virtue, and I don't think it is. I think that just the fact that he's impatient has pushed this along,
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a combination of being patient and impatient. On the one hand, he's absolutely impatient. Do it. Move. But on the other hand, of course, it's a long-term goal. He's talking about what to do in 10 or 20, 30 years.
There's National Socialism. So people don't realize this, but the word Nazi is an anagram for, well, I can't remember what exactly how you say it in German, but it translates to National Socialist Party. The Nazis were socialists, and I guess that you could make an argument at the beginning that worked out for them because the conditions that the Allies set on World War II on the resolution were so harsh that they didn't have any choice. That's also one of the reasons that Hitler became popular too. So a very long story. Anyway, this is Footnotes for Monday. No, it's not July. It's May. Monday, May 11th. I'd like to apologize for my hair. So it's just completely out of control. I went to visit the famous Britney Spears at Salon Amore on Friday, and I had an appointment, but I was late, and she couldn't get me in. And she says, "It's fine. Put some gel in it. It looks good." Yeah, right. So yeah, I'm gonna get in to see her this weekend. So for the next few days, I'm gonna look like crap. So, and tomorrow our guest is Tim Conaway. That's very fitting because now Tim wasn't the first guest we had on this series, but I started doing these podcasts in 2020, audio only for Kong News, and he was the very first guest on our very first podcast at Kong News. He was, so it's kind of fitting. It's going to be our 350th show tomorrow, and I didn't realize that till this morning. I didn't realize that, and we had already booked him, and so it's actually kind of fitting. And Tim is a fascinating guy. Now, if you've never seen the show before, Tim is the former of Hustler magazine. He was the editor for 15 years at the height of Hustler's popularity, and that is the late 80s and the 1990s when they sold like 5 million copies a week. Yeah, he did that, and I tease him about this constantly, but it's true. And he does just a killer imitation of Larry Flint. Fantastic. But anyway, so he always has a lot of good stories. Yeah, I'm glad he's going to be here for that tomorrow. So today we don't have a lot of time here because we went over time on the interview because he was so damn interesting. I want to talk about the fact that on Friday the government, the U.S. Now they're back to calling them UFOs and UAPs, both files. About 160 some files they released. Has been very, very interesting because it's largely been mixed. Some people think this is incredible. Some people think just the fact that it is because it's the first time that the government has let stuff trickle out a few videos at a time here and there over only the last 10 or 15 years, as do some of these files. And so the fact that government did this is amazing. And some people say, yeah, but there's nothing really much new videos. There's a couple new reports. But one of the things that's really interesting is that to J. Edgar Hoover from a bunch of field office guys at the FBI saying they had dead extraterrestrial bodies. But you're getting back to what Rainer and I were talking about, and I've said this before. At this point, I look at the fact that non-human intelligence, it's, as far as I'm concerned, that's proven. The circumstances, where they're from, how they get here, what they're doing, what their motivation is, I can speculate based on a lot of information I've gathered, but I really don't know. But I'm positive that's already happening. So, and it's interesting because that's one of the same thing. She said, "We're not making any judgment about what's going on here. We're just going to let you, the public." That's partly noble and partly to cover their ass. And there's a possibility they don't want to say that. I'm going out on a limb here, but there's some people who said that extraterrestrials have told our government not to tell the public. So there's that. So I don't know. There's a lot of this stuff is just obviously bullshit. Some of it is possible bullshit. It's really, really complicated. It really is, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that's been floating around for 40, 50, 60 years, and some of it's probably true and some of it probably isn't. So who knows what, I mean, there's So we had Paul Blake Smith on this program. He's written 2 books, actually 3, but 2 in particular are about the fact that about this rumor that's been going around for 70 years that Dwight D. Eisenhower, as president of the United States, met with a bunch of extraterrestrials. Now, his book is so well researched. I can't recommend this enough, too. If you want to, you can go to Amazon. Named Paul Blake Smith. I think it's called The Eisenhower Encounters, is I think the name of the book. It's so incredibly well researched that it's hard to. I mean, he's either confirmed the fact this happened or he's completely full of shit. One or the other. There's so many facts and figures in the book. It's hard to, and dates and places and all this sort of stuff. It's hard to discount it. So, and also that Laura Eisenhower. Actually, I didn't read this recently, but I read about her recently. Laura Eisenhower, Dwight D. Eisenhower's granddaughter, is convinced that this happened too, even though she does admit he never talked about it. Either way, he never said it didn't happen, never said it did. He just never talked about it. But through her own research, through her family history, she's come to the conclusion it also happened. So, although, I mean, I'll be honest with you, people think that she's a little on the wacky side. I have to say that. What I read recently is she said that in 2006, she was approached to go to Mars to be part of a working group that's already there, astronauts or a working party on Mars. I have that seen. I'm skeptical of that because very recently, she's talking about 20 years ago. I know we could have done it 20 years ago. Now granted, you're saying, well, if the ETs picked us up and brought us there, I suppose, I don't know. It's just it's so convoluted. But she claims that she was offered a ride to Mars to do this, and she declined. That's what she said. But so who knows? It's just so there's. And so the thing, like I said, this thing is, the government is now saying they're going to make these releases on a regular basis. Not going to, at least for a long time, Trump is not going to stand up on this podium and say that the ET is coming here. They're going to, at some point, they will release a smoking gun video. I don't know if it'll be a video of them interviewing a gray alien. There's there's a couple videos floating around the internet for years, and some people say they're actually real, and they might be real because this is well before AI. But the thing is, there was still CGI, and you could fake that stuff. You still could fake it. So who knows? But that's what I think is going to happen. At some point, they will put out a smoking gun video, and then it will be obvious. But the president may not reference it. I still say this. I don't think the president will talk about this until 2 weeks before he leaves office, because there's the downside to talking about it is too great, and he has 2 years left, and midterm elections coming up. The thing we were talking with Rainer Ziteelmann about, that was really interesting part of his book. Like I said, I read the first half, but he talks about the Apollo space program, is how incredibly much Nixon was concerned about how the Apollo space program was going to affect his re-election chances. It's astonishing the detail they went into. Like, for example, I mean, you may or may not know this. There were Apollo missions planned till Apollo 20. Now, the last Apollo mission that landed on the moon was Apollo 17, but there were 3 more planned after that, and Nixon canned them mostly because of the cost. Because he said too many people are saying that, well, we could use that money better here on Earth. And like Rainer said, the modern equivalent, adjusted for inflation, of how much those launches were, they were about $300 billion each. That's how much money we spent. Trillions, the equivalent, modern equivalent of trillions of dollars on the Apollo space program. And then you understand that right now, the entire U.S. budget is only about $16 trillion. That's for every single thing that the U.S. government spends on. So, I mean, it was a lot of money. And so now, Musk has privatized this. He's commercialized it. He's doing it cheap. I didn't have a chance to mention when we were talking to Rainer about the fact that when they, that, you know, they were these reusable rockets they use, and the fact they land them again, and the amazing thing is they landed the first one on the first try, and they weren't necessarily expecting to do that. And thought, well, we'll try this, see if it works, and they nailed the landing on the first try. And I still remember watching that, thinking, Jesus, that is fucking unbelievable. Have you've seen this? They catch these rockets. They're called chopsticks, is what they call them in the trade. They in the tower where these two arms come out and literally catch this rocket as it's landing. It's mind boggling, and they did it the first. It worked the first. Really unbelievable the stuff humans can do. So yeah, so we're going to be out more and more information. It's going to be interesting to see if, and I do have to agree that people are talking about this, about the fact that there's really, other than a couple, 2 or 3 new videos and a few new memos, I would say that the FBI memo actually confirms the fact that ET's coming here. I would say that. They said they had dead bodies. So, it's like a lot of people just can't wrap their mind around this. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens here. But anyway, more is supposedly going to be coming. And finally, I got one more thing for today that I have to, which is kind of sort of in the same realm here, about the fact that this happened this last week in South Korea. I can't pronounce this. The Jug-Azi Buddhist temple in South Korea actually ordained an android robot. And I had a picture, and I forgot to actually put it up so you can see it. It's too bad. I screwed that up. Yeah, they ordained this robot to be a Buddhist monk because on May 27th is Buddha's birthday. And so they did it in anticipation of that. The little 4-foot robot. It's like, yeah, there you go. It's like the same, like what I think we ended our Thursday night broadcast about the fact that says this android robot caught a flight on Southwest Airlines, and they had to ask it to leave because they realized this lithium battery that was too big for the flight. It went against regulations, but they bought it a seat. The company that they usually put it in a it'd be actually cheaper to buy the seat, so they bought a seat and it walked on. So now in South Korea, the Buddhist monk's name is Gabby. That's his name. You can go talk to him and get some spiritual guidance. My ass. I'm not getting any spiritual guidance from the goddamn robot. That's not gonna happen. At any rate, tomorrow night, our 350th show, it's Tim Conway will be here, and next week we have Monday off, and then we're doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and after that, for Memorial Day week, we're taking the entire week off. So I want to thank you folks for watching. I have to mention, I hate doing this because you hear every damn video on YouTube. Please like or subscribe us. I really appreciate it a lot. Our shorts are still blowing up on YouTube and TikTok, and that's pretty cool. So anyway, we'll see you tomorrow. Tim Conway will be here, 350th show. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are. And good night to you, wherever you may be. I'm Jim Peters. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night.